Hey guys, Griffin here. And while we're all going away for spring break, I decided I'd do a video about transportation, specifically public transportation, and even more specifically, public transportation in New Jersey, and even more specifically, trains in New Jersey, and even more specifically than that, are trains in the US actually good? First, let's go over some US rail history. Rail travel in the US started really in the 1820s and 1830s, around the same time that it started in Europe. The first proper commercial rail service in the United States was the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, which started in 1827 and served the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region of the U.S. As the U.S. expanded, so did our train network, and pretty soon we had lines crisscrossing the country mainly for reasons of freight or mail shipping. So why is passenger rail service in the U.S. so bad today, you may ask? Well, because of these things. America, being a still pretty much developing country in the 20th century, wanted to pump up their car infrastructure. So what do with all this new land? They build interstates. Lots of interstates. One thing that I've learned about my fellow Americans is that they have a really independent streak to them. And in this scenario, they're kind of right. I mean, after all, why would I sacrifice the individual freedom of a car for a public train that is late all the time and doesn't have the same range or the same ability to access everywhere, the same versatility as a car? Okay, so that's the first con of trains. The next con of trains is... Come on. Why won't it... Perfect. Okay, so anyway, one of the most common complaints about trains in the US, namely Amtrak, MTA, subways, NJ Transit, Washington Metro, whatever, they're all too slow. And I can see that. For example, the route I took today from Manasquan to Bayhead would take about 9 minutes, give or take, depending on traffic conditions, to drive. If it was on train, it would take about 14 minutes because of all the stops and purchasing your ticket and that's not even counting getting to the train station and whatnot. So yeah, you can see why it's a bit of an inconvenience for some people. I understand that these are issues that other modes of transportation have as well, like planes and whatnot, but it reinforces the narrative of cars being more time efficient because you can just get in your car and drive to your destination without really having to worry about tickets and whatnot. And also, I've noticed this is an issue for more NJ Transit because MTA employs this strategy, but because they stop NJ Transit trains stop at every single station. It's really hard to get places efficiently without taking an hour to get from Long Branch to New York. In subways, MTA subways in New York, they use a system called local and express trains, in which local trains only go a couple blocks, or maybe not a couple blocks, but a little farther than that, while express trains go longer distances and only stop at larger stations. So it cuts out a lot of the hassle of waiting out in between stations. I understand that there's really not a lot of need for rail activity in suburban New Jersey, but that's just my perspective. On to the next reason. It's a different day now. This one is less an issue with American development and more just a coincidence, but I still think it's important to talk about. For instance, in France, where train infrastructure is more developed than the US, their landscape is a lot flatter than in America, minus the Alps. And it would be nice if it did, but dynamite doesn't grow on trees, which makes blasting tunnels through mountains expensive and not really worth the government's time. Just getting comfortable here. No, all this isn't to say that there aren't benefits of taking trains in the US. There are lots, such as... I think it goes without saying that if we're going to tackle climate change, we're going to need two things. Number one is accountability from oil companies. See my band's recent song, Shameless Plug, link in description. And two, individual action on the part of us as people. And I think all of us have pretty much heard by now that public transportation is much more environmentally conscious than using a car. Yeah, I know this topic has been done to death. Believe me, I'm sick of it too, but it's relevant to this conversation, I promise. According to Project Drawdown, which is a campaign for electrifying rail lines, about 37% of world rail lines are electric, meaning that they aren't really dependent on gas prices. And as for diesel trains, if enough paying passengers use them, it'll offset the cost to where it won't rise that much for the individual consumer. So, are trains actually good in the US? The answer is, it depends. There's so many variables that come into play when you're deciding mode of transport. Where do I live? What are my what's my financial standing? There are so many ins and outs. I don't know you. I don't know about all those variables. That's up to you to decide whether a train suits your lifestyle. And I know that it's lame and anticlimactic, but that's really the best answer I can give. Okay, thanks for watching this little mini essay that I did. Check out my band in the description and the NJ Transit trip report video I did a while ago while I was doing the research for this video and the initial writing. Yeah, tune in next time. Thanks. Bye.